Chariot, Kyungye. Hi everyone, welcome to Taekwondo Thursday this week. We're continuing our series of videos on the Training Secret of Taekwondo. Today we're going to be working on number 7. There's quite a lot in this, so we're going to stick to number 7 today. So what is Training Secret number 7? Number 7 is every movement must begin with a backward motion with very few exceptions. However, once a movement has begun, it must not stop until it reaches the target. So we're going to break that down because there really is 3 parts with this. So let's look at part 1. Every movement must begin with a backward motion. What does that mean exactly? Well, let's look at some non-Taekwondo examples. If I was to throw this ball, you wouldn't expect me to just throw it from a fixed position like this. Not a lot happened there, right? You would naturally expect me to draw my arm back and then throw it. That builds up momentum in the throw. Let's look at another example. If I was swinging an implement like a noodle here in my hands, or a bat or a racket, again, I would swing it in the opposite direction of the intended target, a backward motion. Think about a golf swing. All these different examples. You go backward before you go forward. So these are examples of backward motion. Now, let's bring it right back to Taekwondo. If we take a low block, for example, we know that the chamber, we cross the wrists. But it's not enough to just begin here at the wrists being crossed and then just stop and block from there. What we need is backward motion. So we need the blocking arm to come away from the intended direction, and we need the reaction arm to go away from the intended hip. Backward motion. They just slide away for a few inches and then we would perform the block. So we've got reaction force and we've got a block that have increased momentum. In other words, speed, power. Why? Because they've been moving in the opposite direction first. So if we look at it, full speed, without backward motion first, now with backward motion, hopefully you can see the difference in the energy. I certainly can feel it. Let's look at a punch, for example, because this is one that's a bit different. If your punch, not every punch originates from the hip, but particularly for the beginners, we learned that they do. So when we're punching from the hip, we don't draw the arm back from that point. Why? Because it's an unnatural position for the arm, so you get a lot of tension in the shoulder muscles, the chest, even the arm. So when it's in an unnatural, intense position, you end up with less power, okay? Because you're going to be tense. Tension means less speed. So what we do is we let the arms relax completely, and as it relaxes it goes forward slightly. Now from there we can draw it back and punch. So from here, relax, then let the arm it'll just naturally swing forward like a pendulum. It'll naturally swing forward, draw it back and punch. Let's look at it normal speed, and that's all it is. So you have a backward motion, a relaxation motion first, then a backward motion, then you have your acceleration, finishing with destruction. Okay? So that's backward motion and how we apply it, and so importantly, why we apply it. It's essential. Now, we also said that there was very few exceptions. We're going to call this part 2, if you like, part 2. So there's very few exceptions because sometimes we put combination movements together and we punch in fast motion, for example. So we see this in Dosan. We do a double punch in fast motion. I'll just do this 45-degree angle. So we'd have a backward motion on the first punch, but then when we land, we do the second punch instantly. I'm doing it in parallel stance here instead of walking stance just for simplicity. So here, backward motion at the beginning of the first punch, but I'm using the reaction force as the backward motion for the second punch. So it looks like there's actually no backward motion, but there is. We're just using the first punch as part of the second punch, if you follow. I hope that makes sense. So it becomes 1 and 2. So that's just one of the very few exceptions. And now let's look at what the final part of part 7 is. So the final part of part 7 is, once a movement has begun, it mustn't stop until it reaches the target. Now, why is this? Well, it's simple. If you stop, you lose the momentum or the speed that you're building up. Let's say I'm sprinting from between 2 points. I start here and I want to sprint over to that point. I'm going to build up a certain amount of speed. But if I stop halfway, and then I try to go again, I'm never going to get the same speed when I'm stopping halfway, because I'm literally starting again, trying to build up momentum. So the key is to continue increasing my velocity as I'm going from point A to point B. How do students sometimes do this? One very simple example is when they do a walking stance and they step forward. Sometimes when they're thinking about the knee spring, they stop and go down, up, down. We'll be talking about this next week, about sine wave. So I'm not going to dwell on it now. I'm just saying that sometimes people do exaggerate their sine wave and they lose the momentum. Instead of building it up, they're now reducing it. So be careful to stop putting the foot on the ground and then continuing again. Another example is maybe say, look at move 3 in Chonji. From here, don't let it get too close to the wall, pivoting around and again stopping here before finishing the movement, whereas in actual fact it's literally here. We want to increase our velocity as we're going. So watching out that you're not stopping your moves midway, that you continue on until you've actually hit and destroyed whatever your target is. So that's training secret number 7. Hopefully that's a help for you. Cheerio. Kyungye.